Hey everybody, welcome to the Recoup. I'm Cooper Daniels, and I'm a guy that knows a little about a lot. And today I am here with Doug Broughton. He is the founder and CEO of Vendible Labs. And I'm excited to have you on, Doug. Thanks for joining me.
No, it's great. I really appreciate it. I've been a long time fan, so it's good to be here.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Me too. We've met a couple of times, actually. I think
Mhm.
did we throw axes together? I believe we threw axe. Did we throw axes? We
No,
never
I
threw an
don't.
axe.
I'll never throw an axe. No, I'll use an axe,
Okay.
but safety first for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it wasn't here. It was. It must have been in either Austin or Denver. But I know
Mhm.
we've met a couple of times and had great conversations, and we've been talking about doing this for a while. And now you're out there talking about how you can recover people's seed phrases in a sovereign way. We're going to talk all about Vendible, the wallet, Trustible, and what you're doing with NFTs. There's a lot of cool things happening. But before we do that, before we dive in, why don't we just kind of go back and talk a little bit about you, how you got here, and more specifically to Algorand.
Yeah, it's been a long road. So my background is in mechanical engineering, and I didn't do that professionally. I went into corporate management for a pretty big company for a very, very long time.
Okay.
In my spare time, I did a lot of research, mostly in things that people would find really boring. So energy transfer systems. And that got me into blockchain pretty early. So when Bitcoin first came out, I heard the story on the radio about the person who bought the pizza with the Bitcoin, and I said, "What is this stuff?" And I looked at it, and it reminded me of this game that I had programmed like back in 1985 in BASIC, where I had put this in-game currency in there. So I just wanted to know what it was about, and I was looking at it from an energy perspective. Like, could this thing scale? And I was like, man, I don't think so.
Right.
And so I just kind of watched the space and followed along, and proof of stake came along, and I got pretty interested. All of a sudden, I started doing energy calculations between what it would take to confirm a transaction, in POS versus proof of work. And that led me into some open source work groups. And at the same time, I had really, it was my days of large corporations were over for a while. And so I had started working on my own, like all that research that I'd done, everything. I finally got brave enough to step out and start doing some things and trying to make something happen. So it was either going to be blockchain or it was going to be algae for food.
Algae?
And
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so yeah,
Cool.
I was working on growing spirulina in unused warehouse spaces for food in urban centers, and so it was I was looking at that, and at the same time, I was in a couple open source groups, blockchain and identity and payments, specifically privacy preserving payments. And where I'm from, I live in the middle of the US, and the way the food is grown is in rows, and they, if it's not grown that way, they really have a hard time understanding anything about the potentials. And so I kept drifting closer and closer to blockchain, and so I got pretty deep in 2017 into one of the groups, and I was fascinated by this technology, and I love the community aspect. All these people coming together to support this build, and at the same time, I kind of felt a little. I felt like something was missing, and when I realized that it was that there was just a small subset of people that was resonating with these projects, and all very technical people. Like everybody, if you either get it or you don't at that
Right.
time. And And so I started wondering where everybody else was, because I thought this was amazing. And so I started really digging into why everybody else wasn't just on fire for this. And then that's when I saw the gaps, and I started researching what's called like technology adoption life cycles. And this exists not just in blockchain, it's in a lot of nascent industries. You have these early adopters and innovators that come in, and they're pioneers. And the rest of the population is either clueless, they've never heard of it, or they're skeptical, and so they don't really adopt this until something happens. And it reminded me of, like, I've told this story before. So I mentioned that I had been programming I was way too early. I should have been outside playing, and but I was programming, and it's because I felt this real connection with the computer, and I was able to create these things. And I felt like I knew things that other people didn't. And back then it was DOS, right? The Windows wasn't a thing. And then I think it was my sophomore year of high school, I come into the physics classroom, and everybody in the classroom is in the corner around our professor. And I was, what's going on? And Windows had just come out, and everybody was just, you could just see the look on their face. They were just amazed. And these computers had been around, personal computers had been around, and some people had them, and you had your few floppy disks of games and stuff like that. But once that graphical user interface was there, they bridged that chasm. And now all of a sudden everybody was on the computer. And in a way I was a little like, wow, it felt like my balloon had deflated. Like what I felt was like mine and not, special. Now everybody's on the computer, right? And it didn't feel as special anymore, but it was Windows that, like, it bridged that gap. And so I started looking at what were the things that needed to happen to bridge this gap. And so that was like 2017 and 2018, formulating all these ideas. And then, at the same time, Algorand's white paper came out, and from day one, I was sold. Because of the consensus mechanism, it went back to that for me. And I started talking to the Algo Inc. team, I think really early 2019, about Vendible. Because, and like, we were both too early, right? So I had, we put this architecture together on a closed permission system, linking identity and data, but I really wanted it to be open, just like these groups that I'd come from. And so, it took time, and I spent time talking with banks and corporations about why do you guys do what you do? Why do you have to, what are these regulations? Why do you have to do them? And I was really curious about why companies weren't building on Ethereum. Why they were building on Hyperledger and Quorum, these closed permission systems. And that's when, it's sort of everything kind of came full circle. Between looking at compliance and privacy and data, we essentially said there's a simpler way. And what we know, where like identity is this thing that is its own thing, and you do this check, and then you go in and you have it, you go into your service. And so essentially what we've done is we've coupled them together, and so that you can't break them apart. But at the same time, you do it without essentially showing that to everybody else. So like, we can make a connection on chain, and I know you, you know me, and we have a transaction. We should be able to see that transaction and know the assets and the amounts and stuff like that. But really, nobody else should know this And you really probably shouldn't know all of my other transactions and all my other assets in this,
Right.
because no other real payment system works that way. And if
Right.
and so there's 85% of the population that would probably be really uncomfortable with this type
Right.
of setup. And so that was a massive issue around privacy. And then keys, that's another big issue, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, keys get lost every day,
Yeah.
billions and billions of dollars gone, all right, that we just can't get back.
We see it all the time. We see it all the time on Twitter, somebody in our own community, people losing their keys, something happened to their computer. I wanted to ask, well, first, you clearly are much younger than you appear. I mean, the way you're talking about, at 1985 and, so all of that. So there's that. That's a bonus. And then another thing I wanted to ask you before we continued on to these products is so when you found out about Bitcoin, you're like, okay, and you're into energy transfer, which I'm actually interested to know exactly, maybe not exactly, that would be probably a long conversation, but what energy transfer is. And the second part of that question is how do you feel about Bitcoin now and its energy usage and its ability to scale?
So, I have friends that really love Bitcoin, but, it's still, could you run a Visa on Bitcoin and not a Lightning network, not something on top of it, but can you run enterprise level transactions on the layer one? And that to me matters. And so if it's a store of value, that's great. And we can use it as a store of value, but can it go much beyond that? That's not to say, that's for their core developers to say. I would just say as of right now, it's fairly limited in its use. But it does it does a fantastic job. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that. No. Internet transactions between unknown, untrusted parties is what got us to where we are. It's just now the problem is now we know each other, right? Because so many people are now using this, it's no longer unknown parties, and there's a big problem there.
And maybe I'll skip over that energy transfer question, unless you're dying to talk about it. But
we could talk about hydrogen production and fuel cells, but it would probably bore a lot.
Which actually that is a topic that I'm interested in. But what my first video was literally on, I think it was my first video on this show was about hydrogen, green hydrogen and fuel cells. But we don't need to do that. But I will but I will say that, or I will ask, so you said that proof of stake got on your radar and that started to really draw you in. Which protocol was it? Was it Algorand, or was there something before that caught your eye?
Yeah, so it was PIVX, PIVX, private instant verified transactions. So they are an absolute pioneer in the space, pioneer in privacy, pioneer in proof of stake. They're still one of the heaviest developed projects in all of blockchain. And I just, really smart people working on that. Yeah.
Cool. So that drew you in. And then you started to realize, all of these, you're thinking, okay, these private chains are something and you're working there, but then what about these public chains, and how do we get institutions on public chains? Is this part of the journey in your mind here? And then, okay, I do want to talk about that. Let's real quick, just a more general question. When it comes to, blockchain, and some of what a lot of people might see as a benefit is the transparency of it. You seem to be more interested in finding ways for it to be more private. What do you see as that kind of yin and yang of the transparency of blockchain, but also the need for privacy? What are your thoughts around that?
You should have Full transparency, but transparency doesn't have to mean full disclosure. I'll put it that way. So you should be able to see every transaction. You should know what is happening, but
Got it.
I think everybody has an inherent right to privacy. They can lose that right, obviously, if they're a bad actor or whatnot, but everybody should have that right. And I think we give it away really easily. And so, I think we're just like at the tip of the iceberg for, that it's those types of things are really what kind of keep me up at night, which is weird, but, I usually look at processes and I like to take them down the road. So like, what does it mean if we're doing things the way we do right now? What does that look like down the road? And so from a privacy standpoint, businesses understand that open networks don't work for them. Like they can't have a transaction between their trade partners on an open network and expose their address and like the state and activity of all their assets, right? So they have to, that's why they're building on these permission chains. But that also, and like, 70% of Fortune 500 companies are looking into blockchain solutions or actively working on them. They're all on permission chains, which means that as a whole, that all of that early and late majority, the people who aren't in blockchain yet, are going to experience the technology in a much different way than we do right now if something doesn't change. They're all going to just have new custodians of their assets and so their data. Changes. Nothing really changes. What we end up with is Web 2 with a blockchain database. And have we really moved the needle? No.
Yeah, and which we've that's nothing new, isn't it? I mean, that's just, it would be, I mean, IBM has been dealing with blockchain for decades now, right? I mean, these are things that have been around and people have been using it on some level. So what do you see as the societal good of these types of institutions moving from these permissioned private chains to a public open source blockchain?
So the only way that I can sell them on it is process improvement, because that's really all they're going to be concerned with. And so I've had these conversations with some fairly good sized companies, and that use Hyperledger and Quorum. And one of their sticking points is that most everything gets stuck in proof of concept stage. So you'll put something together with a customer on one network, and then you'll try something with a supplier on another network, and they're having their own cross-chain data issues. And how do we get all this data that's in these servers and these clouds onto these chains? It's very confusing, and they're very slow to move. And what they've said is that we just need one set of standards. We need one open network that we can build on. And so my goal since about 2019 was to make Algorand that network. And so all of the privacy protocols, the identification protocols were meant to transition companies from Hyperledger directly on top of Algorand, not a code chain or anything like that, so that they could operate in the open but still have their, all of the protections that they need. And Algorand has the speed and the efficiencies that they would be used to. So that's that's why that was essentially the thesis for the grant that we applied for with the foundation in 2021. We rewarded that. I guess May or June of last year. We completed that a few months ago. And then when we wrapped that, we had a kind of a recap meeting with the foundation, like where do we go from here? And they said that they need accounts, which, I agree. That's how you measure success on a layer one. And so enter Trustible. So we looked at all of our core technologies, and we said, what could drive the most accounts on Algorand? And so effectively, we private key protection for any major blockchain network. You import your keys in, and so we have that main identity account that you create on Algorand. And then for each key that's imported, a new Algorand account is created that holds a little bit of algo, a little bit of our token Vend, and rolls all these zero knowledge proof circuits and encryption systems into this DID that's locked in this account that manages the keys and ties to your main account without exposing that on chain. So our goal is to essentially take all of these users from these other networks and bring them to Algorand, whether they even realize it or not. They'll have accounts on Algorand, and then we've got the other surprise project that we've got coming out that's also going to bring some cross-chain action as well.
And so that isn't going to be announced today, is that? Or are we going to talk about it?
I think we can.
We should talk about it. Okay, so let me unpack a little bit of what you just said about Trustible, and you said DID, which is decentralized identity, right? Like that's a sovereign. That's a sovereign identity. So first, and you also said I believe there's a KYC involved. I'm sure people are going to be interested in that topic, but. Before we go to that, let's talk a little bit about decentralized identity, the importance of that, and how you see that playing, in the future. And, there's this idea of, okay, we should own our identity, we should own our own data, or we should at least be sovereign, and we should have full control and be able to pull that control, right? And so there is, but as it stands right now, in Web 2, we're constantly handing everything over and just basically praying, that everything's going to be okay. It does. It does seem like that is like, it's just like, okay, just so I can go on with my day, here is everything that you might want. And then now I have a whole bunch of new things coming through in my email or whatever. However, it's that minor, or it can get much worse. But so what do you see as the most important part of decentralized identity, and what that is going to play for us in the future as we move towards being more immersed in all of this?
Yeah, for me, there's two things. So reusable identity is a big part for me. So authentication services, that identity is like your anchor in Web3, and that can be reused again for different purposes across different applications. So for me, it's a very flexible framework to start with, regardless of what type of application that you're using. But for me, the other big thing is data. And so data is like you said, it's everywhere, and nobody knows where it really is. Even the people that are storing it aren't always sure where it is. And and so it's bleeding over into Web3. So the majority of decentralized applications still use cloud storage or some sort of centralized storage. And so, we could have conversations whether those are actually decentralized applications or not, if the data is centralized. And then there are applications that are using decentralized storage, like IPFS, things like that, but they build them in the same way as if they were using cloud storage. So the apps developers, the company, they own that data. So we like to envision this world where that decentralized identity that is like this core anchor for your data as well. So because at the end of the day, a DID is really just a list of data attributes that attribute to you. And so what we're doing is saying, okay, we can take this data, encrypt it, store it in decentralized storage, and make claims to it. So like, this data belongs to me. And then we can provide tools for developers, so they can create their own data attributes. So when I go to sign up for, let's say it's a let's say it's a metaverse application that just creates a 3D version of me. So they'd want to know my hair color, my height, my eye color. So when I sign up, it says we need to know hair color, eye color. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. And so what it does is it creates these new data attributes for me on my DID. And when I enter that information, it's encrypted, it's stored in decentralized storage, and it's attributed to me, not the developer. And so I maybe come in and I create this little 3D figure and I look at it and I'm like, well, I kind of look like a troll. I don't think I really want to use this. And so I uninstall, I revoke access to this app. That app can no longer know my hair color, my eye color, my height, because it was tied to my identity. And I'm the one that owns that data. And so for us, we think if it's really going to be Web3, the data needs to be owned by the user as well as the assets. So that's a big one for us.
Yeah. And so maybe this is a naive question or an ignorant question really, but what is stopping from somebody to impersonate being you in order to steal your identity?
Yeah, this is, this was probably the biggest ticket item for us. And it's probably what separates us from the other decentralized identity projects. So we needed to operate from a stance that each person is unique, and we need to recognize them as unique, and sort of respect their uniqueness. And so we use biometrics. So the whole KYC process in our wallet is, people can. It's a natural tendency, and I have that same tendency when I butt up against the KYC process. And I'm like, why do I have to do this, right? Yeah. And so we launched our wallet in closed beta. We're still in closed beta. It's like our kind of our test bed. It's our like little innovation hub. And the first thing that we needed to realize, or we needed to learn from our customers, is like, how can we take you through this verification process in a way that you understand that we actually don't care what the outcomes of that are. We never see any of this information. What we're trying to prove is like there's only one Doug in the Vendible network, and that if I tried to make another account, my biometrics would kick me right out, and I can't make another account. And so because that main DID is like the anchor point, and so I can't have two anchor points, because then I could start to game the system if I had more than one account. And so this way, like, developers can build new types of applications as you couldn't do before. So like if you wanted to have a social network in Web3 and make sure that there were no bots, like that I didn't create 15 accounts to upvote my own post, to like somehow, like if it was a, coin driven upvotes, like how would you do that? And so our uniqueness checks and our zero knowledge authentication services help ensure that I am who I say I am. You may never know it's me, right? Because it could be a completely anonymous app, but at least in that app, you're dealing with an actual person. There's nothing funny there.
Got it. Well, first off, I mean, it doesn't seem likely, but if Elon Musk does successfully buy Twitter, it sounds like he might be interested in some of this technology you're talking about, right?
It would help.
With the bots, right? But so wait, so when I imagine I'm going to take a picture of my face and stuff like that, and then that's going to be how it's going to mean that I can't set that up again. Where does that data end up? Who is like authenticating this?
Yeah, so we are set up to partner with multiple identity validators. Right now, we have a partnership with Onfido, They're kind of a global leader in biometrics and identity verification. So when people go through this process, they do the facial recognition, and they send the government document. They make sure that these match, and they do all their magic stuff. And so typically what happens in these processes is when that is complete, that data gets sent back to the company. So like it would be sent to Vendible, but in our system, this transaction happens between the wallet and Onfido. So the wallet sends this information, Onfido verifies, it sends it back to the wallet and not us, and says, yes, this is a unique instance of this person. And then the wallet will say, okay, now that we've done that, we need you to delete this information. So you delete everything except for the face and a key. And so that's necessary so that when we come back through any future verifications, we still need to make sure that you're still unique. And it's also the main recovery point for Trustible, for the key recovery service.
Right. Cool. And so and then we're going to talk about Trustible. But when it comes to privacy, it seems, governments like the US government are concerned with that. They just sanctioned Tornado Cash, and Monero gets a lot of heat. I think they're looking at Zcash as a security. There was some kind of stuff going on with that. I mean, so clearly that's on their radar. So how does your privacy system deal with that type of compliance? Because it seems to me, obviously Algorand is created by Sylvia Macaulay, zero knowledge proofs. And the fact that technology, is used in different ways, but it's not necessarily used for privacy is interesting. And I wonder if that's because of these type of regulatory concerns. So how does that work in your ecosystem?
So, for the key recovery service, we want to make sure, like at all times, nobody could ever access that key except for you. Right?
Got it.
And so when we set up the accounts in this zero knowledge circuit that we produce, there's a key share in this. And so Vendible has a key, and this third party ad tester we call the foundation holds a key. But Vendible on our own, we can't sign for anything, and they can't sign for anything. What we need in order to complete an actual signature to help retrieve a key is the actual person answering information that they have put themselves, that we inside of the Trustible app, we ask questions about yourself that only you would know, but you would never forget. And so those get encrypted and stored in your identity vault. So when you come for recovery service, it's biometrics first. We know it's you. We know you're alive. We know you're not under duress. And then we ask you these key questions, and it's those questions that get essentially inserted into the signature process. That's the final signature to allow that encrypted information to come back to Trustible, unencrypt in the wallet. And so you now have your keys back. And so we never saw them, we never anything. So that was super crucial for this product. And this is the way our general setup works. If a developer wanted to, for instance, have a financial application where they managed accounts for consumers, and they needed ongoing like money laundering, monitoring and things like that. Those things can be done through us. So because of our partnership with Onfido, we can get these types of feeds if we need to. There is a separate setup process that we can go through, whereby it's the same thing as always. So this is what we call the sovereign system. That the first instance is like kind of like really strong sovereign, and then this is what we call the compliance sovereign system, where, like I said, privacy is a human right, and everybody should have it. and nobody should be able to access any of my data at any point in time. It drives my family nuts, right? When I rant about this, but they really shouldn't, right? Like it's mine. But if I go out and I do something to hurt somebody else, or I'm manipulating something, or I'm abusing something, I'm losing that right to privacy. And so we have a separate encryption setup that optional developers can put in place, whereby it's really kind of the same process, but the multi-parties can step in and say, well, this person is clear, there's a court order, this person is clearly laundering money through this application, or they're abusing somebody online, and we need to boot them out of this account. Then there's a threshold encryption system where multiple parties agree, and it has to be multiple parties. It can't be just one party. There has to be a system. And we want to put a whole DAO type, decentralized control structure around this, because we don't think any, essentially, there's a threshold encryption system where, yes, it could hold that account, pause that account, freeze that account, and make those investigations. So you do have the compliance side. Personally, in our white paper, when it comes out, you'll see the first assumption of Vendible is that Vendible can be trusted. Okay. And the second assumption is that over time, Vendible cannot be trusted, right? Because I don't know who's going to be running the ship 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road. So I don't trust that person because I don't know that person. And so we needed to make sure that in our architecture, like at the core technology level, that over time, these control systems are decentralized and it's very open, and you can see any instance of this happening, and there's decision-making processes so that, like I said, it's transparent, but at the same time, it's, there's controls there. So,
So if somebody out there is like, okay, so I really want to use Trustible. I have lost keys in the past. I know how that accident can happen outside of my control. Obviously there's catastrophic things like fire, but I mentioned, maybe if you're ill-advisedly keeping your keys on the cloud or on your computer, or however you're doing that, whatever endless different ways that could happen. They're like, I want to use this, but so at first I do have to have some level of trust that there's not bad actors working at Vendible.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's true. And so that's going to be our biggest hurdle, right? Everybody's going to say, we don't trust these guys. We know this, right? And I just got through saying that I don't even trust the CEO 20 years from now.
So, you're like, I don't even trust whoever's here.
These guys. Yeah. So it's going to be really crucial that we educate how our process works. We're going to have multiple peer-reviewed papers that we push out that show all of our architecture and how we're structured. Once we hit testnet, we're going to open source all of our code, so everybody sees exactly what's happening. Because otherwise, a lot of the early core crypto natives will never accept what we're doing. They just won't. They're also the ones that are losing billions of dollars, but they won't accept us. At the same time.
What's that guy? Is he in Scotland? How much money has he spent? I don't know if it's Scotland, but trying to get access to a dump or something.
Millions digging through a dump. Yes.
Good luck, man. Yeah.
But that's so education is really going to be core to what we do. It's one of the reasons, our marketing campaign is just education. This is one of those first forays into that, getting to know not just the company and what we stand for, and we're people first, and that's really all we care about, but really understanding how the tech works. Because just off the top, it doesn't sound right. When people haven't heard this. They didn't, this is not a thing. You've got to be storing this somewhere. You've got to be doing something, right? And so we have to be able to show, no, we're not. Not only are we not, we don't want to. And so that's our big push.
That's your big push.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about Vendible. I'm thinking about the things that it could provide to me. Obviously, I'm curious about that. And this talk about decentralized identity, sovereign identity, and being able to kind of have that and give people permission access to that. I mean, what is the degree in which what I'm interacting with has to be compatible with this service, right? Like, is that going to, am I going to be able to use something like this and sign into a centralized, like a Google, like Gmail or something like that? Like, is that, or is there going to be a lot of work in getting compatibility going?
For some things, it would be daunting to say the least, and then for other things, it's really simple. So, like I said, our wallet is a bit of a testing ground. Everything that we do relies on those associated accounts that I talked about. So, like these zero knowledge proof accounts that we create, and so we're constantly trying to test how can we use these to better protect ourselves online. And so, like one of the next releases in the wallet will be, a simple, like if I have a Discord account and I'm always participating in these airdrops, I'm always putting this, my public address in these Discords. Why not just have an associated account that it's just for Discord, right? Yeah. And so then you can just drop this in there, and then it can go straight to that one, and then we'll have privacy mechanisms that route it back, or you can go drop to a different address. So these are the types of fun things that we like to think about and work on, because we know these things are needed. So our vision is we're not really like competing with anybody. We're not even going to go out there and try to like take over the wallet market. It's much smarter for us to make some really simple, smart tools for wallets around authentication services, around KYC, AML if they ever need it, but also like the key protection system. Like it would be much simpler for us to, if I'm in, I won't name any wallets, but if I open up my wallet and I create a new account and it just has a pop-up that asks me, would I like to protect this, would I like to protect this key? And I'm just yes or no, and I'm done, Right. So those are the types of things that we would rather do, Got it. We work collaboratively.
Vendible Labs. It seems like and you even said it's like a closed beta where it's almost your testing ground, this wallet for all of these different services. You seem, you've said it a couple of times, you're very concerned about privacy. And I think a lot of people are concerned about privacy. So I imagine that you don't have a goBTC wallet that you're constantly asking people to send shrimp to and things like that, like I am.
So first off, I couldn't get goBTC because that was taken before they ever went out. I was kind of hot, but no. And I know some of the people here know Jeff Malco. So I saw him a couple months back and he absolutely roasted me. He's like, what did he? He's like, why did you not register Vendible.algo? I was like, and he bought it for me. Yeah, he bought it for me, and another friend bought Vendible.algo on ANS, and they're like, why are you not doing this? And I was like, well, someday we'll show you our architecture for privacy preserving domain names, and maybe we'll share that. And maybe we've already discussed this, but no, it's we ran a contest, earlier in the year where I held up a sheet of paper with a public address, and the first person to tell me what the NFT was in my wallet won the NFT, right? And it was less than a minute, before somebody won, because that's the nature of the open network, and it's great, right? But there's limitations, and so you just need to be aware of those things. So right now, I know there's a lot of people out there listening. They've got the governance account, and they've got the NFT account, and they've got the algo account for spending, and they've got this account and this account. They've got all these different accounts. What we're doing with our associated accounts is essentially automating that process in a way that you don't even have to, quite honestly, you don't even have to write the seed phrases down. As long as you've got your main seed phrase, or you go through recovery, it automatically regenerates everything for you. So, you don't really have to worry as much.
Nice.
So that's it, right? We want to take fear away from in the space so that more people will come in.
Well, that's right. And also based on what you were saying earlier, also some more institutions will come in as well. They're like you said, this privacy. I mean, not that, it's true. As this gets larger, unfortunately, big money, big players, or fortunately, unfortunately, however you see that, it's going to come if you want this to grow, mass adoption.
They're going to use blockchain. And so the question is, how are they going to use blockchain, and what does that mean for our daily lives? Yeah. And so we're just like, we put a flag down and said, this is where we would like it to be. And, how much benefit will that be? I don't know. It's hard to say. It's very early days. We hope some people will listen and say, oh, there is a way, right? Because we've got full self-sovereignty, which is fantastic. And hardly anybody wants to be fully self-sovereign because there's so much risk involved, right? Like, who wants to be completely sovereign over all
there's some people, but that is, there's something that I've said on the show a lot. It's like, okay, be your own bank, but once you're your own bank, you've got to be your own bank. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot of responsibility. There's a reason why banks exist and FDIC insurance exists, because people don't want that responsibility, right?
And if we don't change something like structurally, then everybody else who could care less about the seed phrase, could care less about sovereignty, will go straight to the new custodians. And so whether that's banks that pick up, key services, or they just adopt blockchain on the back end and you never even think about it, right? That's probably the way it will go, is that banks will just use the technology and everything will still look the same. And like we said earlier, we're not really moving the needle then.
And then my next question then is, Algorand does have co-chains, private chains. What are your thoughts on that infrastructure and how people may use that? And I mean, because my understanding is that there's still interaction with the main chain with those. Like, how is this working here? You have a grin on your face. It seems like you have something that might be compelling.
This was the question I was hoping you wouldn't ask.
Really?
So, yeah.
That's so funny.
It
took me 50 minutes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If algo is still used as like a fee for transactions, then it's good for the Algorand main chain. But you have to look at who's running the nodes, right, in this co-chain. And it depends on the use case. So if I'm in, if I'm in supply chain and I only need to work with other suppliers, right? But I don't trust my other suppliers necessarily because they're in countries that I don't have a lot of interaction with, then a co-chain makes sense, right? If that supply chain co-chain though moves outside of like that niche and starts to issue like payments and so now we have users. If it's not B2B, makes a lot of sense for co-chains,
Right.
but when you go B2C with co-chains, turn around and look at who the nodes are, who's running the nodes, because whoever's running the nodes owns the entire network and they own all the assets and all the data on the network. And so if I am interacting as a consumer on a co-chain, I don't actually own whatever it is that I'm, because at any point in time, the nodes could agree to change the transaction. The nodes could agree to close my account. All the fun things that we know today, like we experience from exchanges, right? We've seen exchanges quite recently.
Yeah.
Get to make decisions because as soon as I deposit onto an exchange, I actually no longer own that asset, right? It says I deposited 100 algo, but what it's saying is that exchange owns 100 algo, and I have a credit for that deposit because they now own it. It's their keys. And so they can say, sorry, things didn't work out. We'll see you in the class action lawsuit. So look to who's running the nodes if that's what it is. But I think it's inevitable that we're going to see co-chains and private chains running a lot of consumer systems, and it won't really, it'll kind of maybe look a little Web3, but it really kind of be.
Well, and that's one of the main concerns or criticisms I hear of people saying about Cosmos, right? Is that they have all of these, have all these separate networks, and then it's just up to how many validators or, how many nodes are being run in there. And it can be highly centralized case to case. Now, I guess the argument for something like a CBDC is that, of course, they have to have control over the money and they need to be able to kind of do that, right? I mean, a government's going to demand that kind of control.
Yeah. I mean, that's why that's one of the main reasons why we created Vendible, because we knew that was coming. And so that's essentially, we wanted a third option, right? So sovereign, custodian, we're like this, it's either self-sovereign or it's custodian. We're just a sovereign system because we believe that you can run a central bank digital currency directly on top of Algorand without a co-chain. There's nothing preventing them. We've shown that, from an architecture standpoint, they can still have all of the control that they need, but they can grant the privacy to the consumer in ways that aren't here now. And this is, this may be a result of me, being a bit of a dreamer. But I will say that it's completely feasible because we've got a 90 some odd page doc that says it is. And so I would invite anybody to read it once we'll be publishing this right when we start testnet. And it's a fantastic, very, very long read.
And when is testnet?
So we're going to run an NFT. We're going to release a series of NFTs as a run up to testnet, because we have some touch points with Algorand. People have kind of heard of Vendible. They're not really sure who we are or what we do. It's when they've heard it, it sounds a bit confusing. But we can at least, we have some presence in the community, but we're going to be, selling our service to all the other major networks. So we've come up with this novel concept around a utility token
Oh yeah.
that we're going to release on 4 different networks. So we're going to release this It's it looks like an NFT, but we call it an X NFT,
Okay.
a cross network fungible token. And
Okay.
so essentially it's utility token, and it has the exact same utility, discounts, rewards, incentives, regardless of what network it's minted on. So inside
Okay.
of our ecosystem, inside of our application, it has the same utility. And we can prove that it has the same utility because you'll be able to take an NFT from Ethereum and the same level NFT from Algorand and merge them together and kind of craft the higher level NFT on the network of your choice. So we can like unequivocally say, yes, these have the same value. And so it's a bit of a, we want to see how this plays out. We're curious, because there'll be price differences between networks, and we're curious if people will exploit that. And how, what we really want to see is, will this drive exchange to Algorand marketplaces? Like that's another go. Because once again, our goal from Foundation said, we'd love more accounts. And so we want to bring all these NFT traders from other networks into Algorand and start interacting with us. So yeah, I'm really excited, and there's a good cause behind it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So the good cause is what's the good cause before I move on?
So
No, I'm not moving on, but I want to
drawing attention to and trying to combat air pollution.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Yeah,
I need that. I'm in Los Angeles. That would come in handy.
One of the
over
worst.
Here.
Yeah, we're working on several potential partnerships to come out of this. So part of the the purchase price and the royalties will go to this. So a couple initiatives we're looking at. But so like purchasing them, trading them, crafting them, all this stuff will help clean air in the real world. And so in the series, we've got this city that we've created called Ibble. Like, I guess if you guys haven't, now that you see Trustible, it ties into Vendible. That IBLE also ties into fungible, non-fungible. So it's kind of a concept of ours. But our city is covered in smog. So like this first NFT looks rank, like horrible. Just like Los Angeles on when there's no wind, and so all these level ones, heavy smog, and then when you craft them to this higher level, not only do you get more discounts and rewards and some pretty cool passive revenue, but you take a little bit of the smog away, so you get to see a little bit more of the city. And so you merge up until you have this crystal clear, beautiful city. So you've helped to clean the city, Ibble City out of the air there, and you've done some good in the real world too.
Oh, that's cool. And so you're helping clear you're getting your NFTs, smog is going away as you contribute to removing smog. And I also imagine as you have a clear skies NFT, there's more utility in the ecosystem.
Yes. So bigger discounts, you hit higher levels, you can start to rent this out so other people can get discounts.
That's cool.
There's once we turn the light on for mainnet with Trustible, we're gonna a lot of the profits are gonna go into a DAO, and so there's a treasury there, and every so often the DAO can take a percentage of that as a dividend. So if you hold Vend, anybody who's using Trustible will have some Vend because they can lock it. Each little account locks a little bit of Vend. So you're a tiny governor. You can always obviously add more. But the treasury is Algo, Bitcoin, Ethereum. So you guys get to decide how you want to trade this, invest this, spin off companies, whatever you want to do. And then if you want to issue a dividend, you can do that. So these higher level NFTs also get like dividend bonuses and things like that.
Okay. So and I don't think we actually made this point, or maybe we did, but when you talked to the foundation the second time and bring in accounts, it just, and I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but this is something that anybody can really use, right? I mean, a Bitcoin guy on Bitcoin can use the Trustible to recover their phrase, and they by using Algorand, and they don't even necessarily need to know that they're using Algorand. It's just a isolated service. They'll be paying in Bitcoin. And I see that you, and it just occurred to me, I'm seeing the shirt that you're wearing.
Yeah.
They may come in handy at this point, right? Is there? I don't know.
It wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
It wouldn't hurt. I would just say that.
All right. Okay.
They're good people. Yeah.
They are good people. That is for sure. Yeah. All right. So, and we haven't talked about this, but you did give me a peek at the light paper. Has the light paper been released? Is that out?
By the time this airs, I believe, yes.
Yeah.
So, I think the cat will be out of the bag by then. Yes.
In the paper, I know we're running a little long. I hope you're okay on time. Are you okay on time?
I'm good.
By the way,
I'm good.
Yeah, you're good. So you're doing some interesting things with the marketplace and NFTs. Why don't you help me understand that a little bit?
Yeah. So going back to the labs, the laboratory that we've got going, and going back to privacy again, we were just looking at the NFT space and seeing what's missing and where is there a big gap. And for us, it's lack of ownership rights. So we've seen where people launch a collection and then people will just copy paste these, and then they'll go over to another network and they'll put them on a market.
100%.
And make, well,
and then also that for sure, but just sorry to interrupt, and just the whole joke that people make that are down on NFTs is like, all right, right click save. Great, bro. I'm glad you paid $365,000 for that picture of an ape. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we've developed is, so we spoke about the encryption systems and how data is tied to our decentralized identifier. So we have a marketplace solution where creators encrypt their artwork first, and then it's stored into decentralized storage and it's attributed to their DID. And so the only person that can view the original is the creator inside of their application. Everybody else sees a second image. So we create a second image with a watermark version, and then that is what's put into the metadata that can be seen across marketplaces and this and that. So that there's some protection here, and in this marketplace, we track downloads and screenshots and the right clicks and things like this, and we add that information to the metadata. So when you're looking at a series of like a collection, if you've got you're comparing two of these assets, and one has never been downloaded, nothing, it's clean, and the other one maybe has more rarity and attributes, but it's been downloaded 50 times and all this. You get to have a new discussion around value where you didn't before. And so the big trick was the encryption systems. So when you sell that, removing the right of the creator to see the original and then giving that right to the new owner. But that's all done. Fantastic team. Really couldn't be any prouder of these guys.
I gotta say, that sounds really interesting. That doesn't exist, huh? Is that not out there as far as you know?
As far as we know, no. No. So we'll be looking to partner with other marketplaces and we'll put our own out, but we'll be very niche because once again, we're not in competition. It'll be a curated marketplace. So we'll work closely with some artists and put some special collections out and do a few things of our own. But it's really like, once again, it's a testing ground, because I know I could talk for another 30 minutes and bore everybody about steganography.
Yeah, don't do that.
Which
I don't even
is,
know what that word means.
yeah, it's a type of, it's like a watermark that you don't see. So you're changing little bits in the file. So changing a few bits so that we can track the address, the owner of the account. So if we put the address of the owner in there, sorry, and then it changes hands, and we update the bits a little bit, so the new address is there. But then all of a sudden, the new owner sees their NFT out on Google. Then they can take that, they can run it through our system, and they can say, it was this account that released this. So you can go talk to them about why your $100,000 NFT is now all over Google. So
interesting.
We can have new conversations, and it reduces all of that, because there's just like I said, energy transfer is like a big deal for me, and you can see in Discord and stuff, so much energy is spent like trying to prove like this is the true asset, right? And here's the fakes and all this talk and all this. It's so much expended energy when we should probably be doing some other things. And having some other conversations instead.
That was a pretty epic callback, Doug. I'm not gonna lie. Like, you brought it back to energy transfer, the thing in the first 15 minutes that we talked about that we never actually addressed, and then you brought this all the way back at the end. So energy transfer is exactly what it sounds like. Is the amount of energy you use, or so break down in the most layman way you can what energy transfer really is.
So in that instance, it's work, right? So mental energy is burning. It's like chemical energy expended into electrical and things like this. So if we really get to a biological level, I could be expending a lot of calories combing through all these discords, combing through all these marketplaces. And this is energy that could be used for other things to benefit myself, benefit those around me. It's the same thing with the wallet. So in these associated accounts where you don't have to worry about the keys, like rather than have to worry about this seed phrase for this governance and this seed phrase for this NFT and this and that, we could just automate those things, have protections in place, and we can live our lives. And for me, that's kind of a driving force, is to just have a bit more peace and comfort and focus on some things that really, really matter.
So what you're saying is the fact that I had a third child, now that energy that I'm spending there, I could have been doing that. I knew this instinctively. I was like, okay, this is gonna make things harder. And I was right. I was definitely right. So that's what energy transfer is. Okay, good. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I mean, I feel pretty good about this. It was really exciting, really cool to learn about your journey and see. I mean, you've been in the Algorand ecosystem for so long, and from 2019, working on privacy and identity, and now with Trustible, helping people recover their seed phrases in all these really compelling, zero knowledge ways. And so, I'll be tracking this. I'm excited to, learn more. And then, so you said testnet is coming soon, right? We talked about this earlier, but.
Yeah, we'll run the NFT series across Algorand, Ethereum, Polygon, Solana, and build that group. We already have a pretty large waiting list for our beta wallet, and so for all my beta wallet folks, I love you guys. Thanks for hanging in there as we do the hard work. So they're going to be in testnet, and everybody in testnet. That's how Vend is going to be distributed. Is through testnet. So if you want the token, you've got to be in testnet, because there's no inflationary mechanisms with our token. You have to participate with us. Once again, energy transfer. You have to participate actively with us and promote us if anything comes out. And so Yeah.
So you're gonna have to put in
they'll
some
be
work.
in there, and yeah,
You're gonna have to earn that token. And the token, if I remember correctly, there's 1,200,000,000 Vend. Yep. And like you said, so the place to earn the Vend token is in testnet. That's where this is going to begin. And is there going to be a sale or anything like that follows testnet, or is that
so we had a token seed round. So there was a private funding round, and then we'll distribute Vend through the beta participants in the wallet and everybody that participates in testnet, and that's it. And so we're kind of excited about the tokenomics here, because each time anybody purchases a key protection, then we're not taking Vend out of like some treasury or something and like inflating the supply. We're taking it off an exchange and locking it into this account for the lifetime of that subscription. And so pretty deflationary. And that's going to extend to all of our products, because all of our products run on these associated accounts. So if a developer creates some new application with our service, then Vend will start locking in all of those as well. So
that sounds great. So there's going to be constant buying pressure on the token, and the more successful Trustible is and your other products, however that's going to evolve, is going to just be locking up more and more of the token. So like you said, deflationary rather than inflationary.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what you said. All right. Well, is there anything else that we left out? Where did you, is there a Discord that people should be going to? Is there a Telegram, follow you on Twitter type of situation?
We have all those things, and we would love it. Yeah.
How about this? Instead of you having to say all that, what I'll do is I'll put it in the description of this video. How's that sound?
As somebody who is into privacy, I'm also not really great at social. But we have some wonderful people that are ready to talk with everybody.
Cool. I definitely noticed, I think it was on your Twitter account. I think in your description, you say, I can't believe I have a Twitter account.
No, I mean, the only social presence I had prior to Vendible was an account on a platform called ResearchGate, where people share academic papers, and that was it. I was forced into LinkedIn against my will. And now I'm forced into Twitter, and so I try. I'm not really great at it, and my team laughs at me a lot because I don't know about those things. So,
well, at least you have a team that's able to help you through that.
Oh yeah, they're great. They're great.
Cool. Yeah. How big is your team, by the way?
We're getting larger all the time. I think so. I think we're 12 people now. Okay. So cool. we've got we're pretty spread out and pretty balanced. 7 developers, and then then our community and business dev team. So
cool. All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Cooper.
All right, great.
All right. If you hear anything here, it's now just my turtle tank.
Okay, great. You got a turtle tank. All right. I like it. How old is your turtle?
My turtle's now about 12. Okay. Just now getting out of adolescence. Another 30 years to go.
How old were you when you got it?
Oh, we got it so we went down to Florida and with my kids, and we went to one of those surf shops, and it was all, they're just so cute and tiny, and then, but you got to take care of them. And so
and they stink, you have to clean.
Yeah. Mine actually, so I've become a bit of a like turtle guru. Like the water's always crystal clear, smells great, just lounging, loving life.
Yeah, my son, when he was probably about 3 or 4, he's 8 now. He really wanted a turtle or a lizard, and I was like, well, they're certainly not getting a turtle because that thing can live 50 years. Like this is a real commitment. And I know that commitment will be put on me, and it's clear, it's evident right here. You've become a turtle guru out of necessity. You can't
because
let
nobody else is doing anything other than saying, "Oh, Shelton." That's it.
Oh, Shelton. Oh, come on. But what a great name.